Hello, damsels and knights. I'm Sam Godwin, and welcome to my channel. After ranking historical figures nicknamed the Conqueror and the Magnificent, it's time to rank most of the historical figures nicknamed the Great and see who is the greatest of them all. Since there are a lot of them, I will make a video for Antiquity, one for the Middle Ages and one for the modern era. Then I will select the top 3 from each group and make a final video, where I will crown the greatest man in history. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's find out who the contestants are for the greatest man of antiquity. The 3 great Persian kings, Cyrus, Darius, and Xerxes, the man who conquered Persia, Alexandros the Great, Sargon of Akkad, Nebuchadnezzar II, Theodosius, Valentinianus, Pompeius the Great, Pope Leo the Great, and Ramesses II. Obviously, this is just my personal opinion, and each of these men became great in their own way. Saying that one is better than another is just a matter of opinions, so don't take it too seriously. At the bottom, I will put Theodosius. He was the last emperor to rule a united Roman Empire from 392 to 395. He is referred to as the Great by later Christian sources due to his religious acts. He defended the Nicene Creed and promulgated the Edict of Thessaloniki in 380, which established Nicene Christianity as the state religion of the Roman Empire. This condemned other Christian creeds, such as Arianism, as heretical. Beside this, he was a decent emperor, which is not enough to make him great. Beside this, he left the empire to his 2 successors, Honorius and Arcadius, who will be 2 of the worst emperors of all time. Next, I will choose Valentinianus. He was a better emperor than Theodosius, ruling the western part of the empire for a decade. During this time, he secured the borders and defeated many barbarian tribes, leaving behind a more stable empire when he died. We can consider him to be one of the last good emperors of Rome, if not the last. Now I'm undecided between Pompeius and Pope Leo. They were both great men who achieved incredible things during their lives. Pompeius the Great was one of the most powerful men in the last decades of the Roman Republic. He defeated Marcus Aemilius Lepidus and Quintus Sertorius, put down Spartacus's revolt, and defeated the Mediterranean pirates. He gained even more influence and power when he formed the first triumvirate with Caesar and Crassus. He proved to be a skilled general and politician, but lost the civil war to one of the greatest generals of all time, Julius Caesar. He is often overshadowed by him, but Pompeius deserves more recognition. On the other hand, we have a pope who achieved what many generals or kings could not. During his 20 years of rule, he increased papal authority in Rome by strengthening the figure of the pope. In 452, he met Attila the Hun, who was planning to invade Rome. However, Leo convinced the barbarian king to leave Italy and spare Rome. In 455, Rome was invaded and plundered by the Vandals led by Genserichus, but thanks to Leo's intercession, the lives of the Romans were spared, as were the 3 major basilicas of Rome. Besides all that, consider this. Leo is one of only 3 popes in the history of the papacy to be called the Great. What he achieved with little more than his influence and without an army is incredible, but I will put Pompeius above him. The Roman general simply had a major impact on his world. In 7th position, I will put Sargon of Akkad. He founded the Akkadian Empire, which dominated all of Mesopotamia and extended as far as the Mediterranean Sea. He conquered the Sumerian city-states, and a total of around 30 cities in the Middle East fell under his rule, proving him to be a successful conqueror. Sadly, due to the lack of contemporary sources, we don't have many details of his rule. We just know that he was a powerful ruler, and that in later centuries he was still remembered as a great leader, with many myths being composed in his honor. He is sometimes identified as the first person in recorded history to rule an empire. Battling for 5th and 6th position are 2 great rulers of their respective kingdoms. One is Nebuchadnezzar II, also known as Nebuchadnezzar, and the other is Ramesses II. The first one was the king of Babylon, Sumer, and Akkad, as well as king of the universe. It's not a joke. He really used this title among many others, and he was not the only Mesopotamian king to do so. Humility was not common in ancient Mesopotamia. Aside from ruling the universe, he is considered the greatest king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He conquered not only Mesopotamia, but also the city of Tyre and the kingdom of Judah, and he tried to conquer Egypt, but failed. As well as being a conqueror, he was also a prolific builder in his empire and is allegedly credited with ordering the construction of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. By the time of his death, he was the most powerful man in the known world. For those familiar with the Old Testament, he is the king who destroyed Solomon's temple and deported the Jews to Babylon. On the other hand, we have one of the greatest pharaohs in Egyptian history, Ramesses II. Unlike his Babylonian counterpart, he didn't have the epic title of King of the Universe, but considering that pharaohs were treated like gods, his propaganda after the Battle of Kadesh and his obsession with erecting statues of himself throughout all Egypt earns him a point as the most megalomaniac of the two. Besides this, Ramesses was one of Egypt's greatest rulers. He ruled the land of the Nile for an impressive 66 years-long reign, during which time he elevated the country's economic and political power to the levels rarely seen before. Peace and prosperity flourished under his rule, and the vast number of projects he initiated are a testament to his greatness and the power of his kingdom. His major problem was finding a worthy successor, as most of his heirs died before him. After his death, Egypt began to decline rapidly. I find it hard to choose between these two, but I will give the higher position to Nebuchadnezzar, since he demonstrated that he was a good conqueror, unlike Ramesses, and ruled a larger empire. Next up is Xerxes, who nearly missed the podium. Of the 3 Persian kings, he was the least impressive for me, but this doesn't mean he was bad. He was still called the Great, and he ruled a very large and powerful empire for 20 years. He put down revolts in Egypt and Babylon and famously invaded Greece, which culminated in the decisive loss at the Battle of Salamis. Despite this setback, he was a good ruler, but his rule was cut short as he was assassinated in 465 BC. After him, the empire began to decline until a certain Macedonian king put an end to the Achaemenid Empire. His name means ruler of the humans, which, beside being simply epic, is fitting for him, since his vast empire ruled over a large portion of the world's population. Now we are left with these 3, Cyrus, Darius, and Alexandros. Cyrus founded the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the Persian Empire. Darius took it to its peak of power and territorial extent, while Alexandros conquered it. It's not an easy decision, but I'm sure it will surprise some of you. At the bottom of the podium, as the greatest man of antiquity, I put Alexandros of Macedon. He was one of the most megalomaniacal men in history. He believed to be a god, and he certainly had some divine skills on the battlefield. He is one of the greatest conquerors of all time, idolized by many famous future generals. He is one of my favorite historical figures, but there are 2 simple reasons for this position. Unlike the other 2 Persian kings, who demonstrated their ruling abilities thanks to their decades-long reigns, Alexander died shortly after conquering the world, so we don't know how he would have ruled such a vast empire. One thing is to be a conqueror, being an administrator is another thing. Also, in his later years he was starting to become a little bit crazy, which for a ruler with unlimited power is not a good thing. We're left with these 2. Cyrus, the man who is considered as a father figure for the Persians. During his 20-year reign, he expanded his territory, conquering Anatolia and Mesopotamia, and he was also a great administrator who introduced many reforms. He was known as a fair and tolerant ruler, who became an example for the ideal monarch in the future. After conquering Babylon, he freed the Jews and helped them rebuild the Temple of Solomon. This earned him the unique honor of being the only non-Jew to be called the Messiah. On the other hand, we have Darius, the man who is arguably the greatest Achaemenid king of all time, since he brought the Persian Empire to its peak of power. He is best remembered for his failed invasion of Athens following the Battle of Marathon, but this was just a minor setback compared to the rest of his reign. He expanded the Persian Empire to its greatest territorial extent. He also improved the empire's standing by building roads and introducing standardized weights and measures. These changes made the Achaemenid Empire more centralized and unified, and it became the largest and most powerful empire in the world at that time. It's hard to choose, but I will go with Darius. He took a stable empire and transformed it into probably the most powerful empire of his time, reached levels of prosperity and power that will never seen again by the Persians. So here is the final ranking of the greatest men of antiquity. As you can see, Cyrus, Darius, and Alexandros will compete in a future video for the greatest man of all time. Thanks for your time, damsels and knights. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video.